Beloved child, I am teaching your soul a path far deeper than merely knowing right and wrong with the mind. I am leading you into the knowledge of love. For there are people who know many words of wisdom, yet their hearts remain cold before the pain of others. There are souls who speak very quickly, react very strongly, and judge very easily, but have never truly stopped to listen to what is breaking behind a person's eyes. Beloved child, I do not want you to live so superficially. I want you to learn to look beyond the surface. That is why I am teaching you to pause. Pause before words burst out from a passing emotion. Pause before anger controls the way you respond. Pause so you can hear what the person before you does not have the strength to put into words. There are cries that make no sound. There are people who laugh often because they do not want anyone to see that they are falling apart. There are souls who move through each day with ordinary eyes, yet inside they are so lonely that a single gentle word would be enough to make them weep. Beloved child, I want your heart to become soft enough to recognize these things. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger, as James 1:19 says, is not merely a lesson about behavior. It is a path that leads your soul into true maturity. The one who is mature in me is not the one who always has the fastest answer. They are the one who knows how to listen most deeply. They do not rush to conclusions about others, based only on a few outward actions. They understand that behind many harsh reactions are wounds that have not yet been healed. Remember how I sat by the well with the Samaritan woman. The world looked at her and saw only a past filled with mistakes and broken relationships. But I saw the deep thirst within her soul, the thirst to be truly loved, to be seen, to be healed. I did not come to crush her with condemnation. I came to touch the place of her deepest pain with truth and love at the same time. Beloved child, that is also how I want you to walk among people, not with eyes fixed only on their faults, but with eyes that know how to search for the pain hidden behind them. Much of the ignorance in this world does not begin with malice, but with a heart too occupied with itself. There are people who wound others because they have never learned how to truly listen to anyone else. There are people who make others cry and still believe they are right because their souls have never been touched by the light of compassion. Beloved child, I do not want you to live in that ignorance anymore. I want you to learn how to sense the atmosphere of a soul. Sometimes another person does not need a long sermon. They only need someone willing to sit down and truly listen to them, without rushing to fix or judge. Sometimes what heals a heart is not perfect advice, but the feeling that at last someone has seen their pain and has not turned away. Remember Job's friends at first, before they began to argue with him and accuse him. They sat with him for 7 days in silence, because they saw that his suffering was very great. Beloved child, sometimes a loving presence is stronger than many words. There are souls who do not need you to explain everything immediately. They need to feel that they are not alone in their darkness. I also want you to learn how to listen to my voice amid the many noises of the world. For a heart that does not know how to be still will find it very difficult to feel the pain of others. If your heart is always filled with the sound of haste, the sound of self-defense, and the sound of wanting to prove yourself right, you will miss the very gentle whispers of the Holy Spirit. But when you learn to pause before me, your soul will become more sensitive. You will begin to sense when someone needs gentleness instead of rebuke. You will know when to speak, and when love needs to appear through peaceful silence. Beloved child, I am not calling you to become someone who appears spiritual on the outside while remaining hardened within. I want you to become someone who carries true light, a light that makes others feel seen, heard, and loved. A lamp does not only light the way for itself, it helps those who are lost find their direction again. There are people around you fighting battles no one knows about. The strongest person is sometimes the one who is most exhausted. The one who often makes others laugh may be the one who cries in silence every night. The angriest person may be the one carrying many wounds that have never been embraced. Beloved child, when you look at them through my eyes, compassion will begin to replace judgment within you. Do not judge by outward appearance, as John 7:24 says, is the word I want to place deep within your heart today. The world often sees an action and quickly draws a conclusion about an entire person. But I look deep into the heart, and I am teaching you to look in the same way. So today, beloved child, let your soul slow down in the midst of a world that always urges you to react quickly. Learn to listen more than you speak. Let love teach you to see the tears hidden behind another person's smile. And when you live this way, you will become a place of peace through which I can touch this world. Not through noise, but through the gentle light of a heart that truly knows how to love. Beloved child, there are nights when you turn your face toward the darkness and cry very quietly, as if by remaining silent long enough, the pain will no longer exist. There are moments when you swallow your sobs, because you do not want anyone to know how weary your heart has become. And then you wonder whether anyone sees those tears, or whether they simply disappear into the cold emptiness of life. But beloved child, not one of your tears falls without my knowing. You have counted my wanderings. You put my tears into your bottle, as Psalm 56:8 says, is not a distant symbolic image. It is the way I want you to understand that your pain has never been treated lightly before heaven. I do not stand far away and watch you suffer like a cold observer. I step into that pain with you. When your heart is broken, I do not turn away because I am disturbed by human weakness. I remain. There are people who only want to be present in your life on the days when you are bright, strong, and full of hope. But I am the one who still sits beside you on the nights when your soul is most depleted. Beloved child, I do not love you less in your tears. Many times, the very place where you think you are weakest is the place where I hold you closest. Remember Hagar in the wilderness, when she held her young child in her arms in a barren land and thought that all hope had come to an end. She wept in despair because she did not want to watch her child slowly die. But right there in that desolate place, I heard her cry and opened her eyes to see that the well of water was very near. Beloved child, there are times when you think you are alone in the desert of life. But I am still there, very near, preparing the source of water that you cannot yet see. There are prayers of yours that never become complete sentences. There are moments when you no longer have the strength to speak beautiful words. There is only a sigh, only a few scattered words in the midst of weariness and confusion. And you worry that I will not listen to such a weak prayer. But beloved child, I have never required you to be perfect before you may draw near to me. The Spirit helps us in our weakness. The Spirit Himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words, as Romans 8:26 says, when your lips no longer know what to say, the Holy Spirit still understands the cry of your soul. I look deeper than words. I see the spark of longing still smoldering within your heart, the longing to return to the light, even when your faith sometimes trembles. And that alone is enough for me to respond. Beloved child, do not think that I only listen to those who are strong and full of certainty. I also listen to the one who is doubting, the one who is wary, the one who is trying to believe in the middle of the night, while the heart still trembles with fear. Remember the father who brought his demon-possessed son before me. He did not come with perfect faith. He only cried out through his anguish, I believe, Lord, help my unbelief, and I did not turn him away because of that incomplete faith. Beloved child, I do not require you to have extraordinary strength in order to be touched by me. I only want you to keep turning your face toward me, even in weakness. There are times when you think you must hide your wariness in order to become a person of faith, but true faith is not pretending that you are not hurting. True faith is still bringing that pain before me instead of running away from me. A crying child does not become any less the child of their father. On the contrary, it is often when the child cries that they are held closer. Beloved child, I want you to stop fighting alone in silence. Do not think that you must carry everything by yourself until you are completely exhausted before you are allowed to fall into my arms. Cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. As 1 Peter 5:27 says, is not a word only for the days when you are strong. It is also for the nights when you have only enough strength left to whisper, Father, I am tired. I know there are wounds within you that have not fully healed. There are questions that have not yet been answered. There are seasons in which you still do not understand why you had to pass through so much pain. But beloved child, do not mistake the silence of heaven for my absence. A seed sprouts beneath the dark soil before anyone sees the first green shoot. And many of the things I am doing within your soul are growing quietly in the same way. Then, a day will come when you look back at the tears you once thought were meaningless and realize that I never wasted a single one of them. There are pains that softened your heart so you could learn to have compassion for others. There are dark nights that taught you to seek me more deeply than the light of your circumstances. There are moments of brokenness that finally led your soul to stop depending on its own strength. So today, beloved child, rest in this truth. You have not been crying alone. Not one of your sighs has been lost in the heavens. Not one weak prayer has been treated lightly by me. I am still here, closer than your breath, gentler than your fear, and more faithful than everything in life that has ever disappointed you. And even when you no longer have the strength to hold on to me, I am still holding on to you, beloved child. Before the world ever knew your name, before anyone placed expectations upon your life or defined anything about you, I had already breathed into your soul a rhythm that belongs to heaven. It is not a sound that human ears can hear, but a deep and hidden calling, an identity woven by my very will. There is a light I placed within you that no one else can copy. There is a flow of life that belongs only to you. You were not created as a repetition of someone else. I did not form you merely to dissolve into the crowd and forget who you are. From the beginning, your soul has carried the seal of a sacred purpose. But beloved child, as the years passed, the dust of life began to cover that calling. Worries made your heart heavy. Disappointments caused you to question your own worth. The words of others gradually became the mirror through which you looked at yourself. There were times when your falls made you think you had lost the special thing I once placed within your soul. And then you began to live like someone merely trying to survive, instead of someone created to carry light. But today I want you to hear this very clearly. The song I placed within you has never disappeared. It did not die simply because you became tired. It was not canceled because of a few seasons when you lost your way. It has only been buried beneath too much noise from the world. And now, I am calling you to return, so you can listen again to what has always been there from the beginning. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. As Psalm 37 says, is not only a word teaching you to rest from the hurried rhythm of life. It is an invitation for your soul to return to the place where my voice can be heard more clearly than every other noise. There are things heaven does not speak through shouting, but through deep stillness. When your heart stops chasing the recognition of the world, stops trying to prove that you are valuable enough, and stops allowing fear to drag you from one day to the next, you will begin to hear again the calling I placed within you. Beloved child, I know you have grown used to seeing yourself through the lens of the past. You look at your failures and think they are your identity. You look at the times you fell and imagine that they define your whole being. There are words once spoken to you in pain that you have carried for years, as though they were the final truth. But I have never looked at you with those eyes. I do not measure you by the things you have gone through. I see what I planted within you from the very beginning. When others see only broken pieces, I see a masterpiece being completed. When you see only your weakness, I see the seed of light still alive within you. You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. As 1 Peter 2:29 says, is not a word meant for some distant group of people. It is the way I call you, the child I appointed to bring hope into places that are dark. Remember Jeremiah when he was still young and trembled before my calling. He looked at his own immaturity and said that he did not know how to speak. But I answered him, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, beloved child. Before you could ever doubt yourself, I already knew who you were before the world placed labels upon your life. I had already called your soul by its true name. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission will grow into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Giving to this work through the link in the description or the pinned comment, whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through hearts that are kind. This is what I say over you now. Each gift you give is like a stream of living water that flows into the life of someone who needs healing. Give, and it will be given to you is not just a verse for Jesus. It is a living promise that shapes your future. Allow me to invite you now, with a simple act of faith, come into this moment with purpose, with honesty, and with hope. The money you give today is not a donation. The act of spiritual obedience that lets your heavens open is what opens them. Let go of your seed and see what God brings back into your life. There are people who live their whole lives merely as reactions to what has happened to them. But I do not call you to live as a product of your past. I call you to live from the purpose I have ordained. You are not the final result of the wounds you carry. You are not the sum of old failures. You are what I thought of in love before time ever began to touch your life. Beloved child, I am awakening within you what has slept for far too long. There is a part of your soul that still remembers it was created from more than this. That is why even in the most ordinary days, your heart sometimes still feels that something is calling you deeper. That is not meaningless dissatisfaction. It is the echo of the purpose I placed within you, seeking a way to awaken. But in order to hear that melody again, you must learn to be still before me. Not only by letting your lips stop speaking, but by allowing your soul to stop running wildly among the pressures and voices of life. There are too many things trying to define you each day: success, failure, comparison, the expectations of others. If you do not return to my presence, you will gradually forget the true sound of your own soul. Remember the prophet Elijah on Mount Horeb. I did not appear in the strong wind, the earthquake, or the great fire. I came in a gentle whisper, and it was also in that stillness that Elijah heard the direction for his life again. Beloved child, I am also waiting for you in such a quiet place, the place where your soul is no longer swallowed by the noise of fear. There are things I placed within you that have not died. There are dreams covered in dust, yet they have never lost their life. There are heavenly gifts sown into your life that are still waiting to be awakened. And when you begin to see yourself through my eyes, instead of through the eyes of the past, you will see a wondrous thing. What I say about you is stronger than everything life has ever said to you. So today, beloved child, stop calling yourself by the names of failure. Stop defining your soul by the dark seasons that have passed. Return to the first calling I placed within you. Let my presence brush away every layer of fear and shame. And then, in the stillness of a heart that is finally chosen to return, you will hear that heavenly song again, not as a distant memory, but as a stream of life awakening within you once more. Beloved child, rise up from the place where your soul has lain for too long in weariness and confusion. But do not think that you must become perfect before you can move forward. I have never waited for you to reach your own completeness before calling you onward. What I seek is not a soul that has never trembled, but a soul willing to awaken in the midst of that very trembling. So today, I am not telling you to strain yourself in order to prove your strength. I am only telling you to hold on to the truth. I am speaking over your life more firmly than every other voice. Return to me, not as one who bows their head in despair, but as a child who finally realizes that the Father's house is still lit. Return not with eyes always expecting punishment, but with eyes open to mercy that has never run dry. Return not with a heart weighed down by shame, but with gratitude that even after seasons of wandering, I have never let go of your hand. And beloved child, move forward with a new faith being planted again within your soul. You still have hope, you still have a future, and you still belong to me. I will never leave you nor forsake you, as Hebrews 13:5 says, is not temporary comfort for the days when your heart is weak. It is the covenant I have placed upon your life. There are times when you think you have gone too far. There are nights when you believe the distance between you and me has become too great to return. But beloved child, even when you lost sight of me, I never lost sight of you. When you stand in my presence, you no longer need to look in every direction to search for your worth. The world constantly pushes you to compare the journey of others, the speed of others, the success of others. And then you begin to think that if your life does not look like theirs, perhaps you have failed. But beloved child, I did not create you as a copy of anyone else. No soul is written twice in my hands. Every life is a distinct story bearing the seal of heaven. Every step you take belongs to a map I have drawn with wisdom beyond what you can see today. I know the plans I have for you, plans for peace. As Jeremiah 29:11 says, is not a vague promise meant for a nameless crowd. It is a word I speak directly to you. That purpose is not borrowed from someone else's life. It was written specifically for your soul before you ever took your first breath. Beloved child, there are seasons when you think you are being left behind. But in truth, I am only adjusting the rhythm of your steps. There are times when you feel slower than others, as though everyone is moving forward while you remain stuck in silence. But do not mistake silence for being forgotten. A gardener does not dig up the seed every day to see whether it has grown. Some of the deepest works take place in the dark soil before anyone sees the first sign of life. Be still and know that I am God. As Psalm 46:10 says, is what I am teaching your soul in those seasons that seem to slow down. For the world always urges you to run faster, achieve more, and constantly prove your worth. But I am not governed by the clock of man. I am not hurried like your fear. I work in the depths before revealing the result outwardly. Remember Joseph. There were years when he thought he was being pulled backward, betrayed, sold into slavery, forgotten in a dark prison. But beloved child, not one of those seasons was meaningless. While Joseph thought his life was slowing down, I was preparing him for a position that if it had come too early, he would not yet have been mature enough to carry. In the same way, there are things I am forming within you. In the very silences you once thought were delays, I am teaching you to listen instead of trying to control everything. There are souls so used to directing their own lives that they no longer know how to rest in my guidance. But beloved child, a child does not need to know the whole road in order to be at peace. When their hand is resting in the hand of their Father, there are things within you growing quietly, a deeper wisdom, a more mature faith, a peace that no longer depends on circumstances. You think I am holding you back, but in truth, I am causing the roots of your soul to grow deeper, so that when the new season comes, you will not be knocked down by the winds of life. So today, beloved child, do not fear the silences I allow in your journey. Do not panic when you do not yet see every door opening immediately. Do not judge your life only by what your eyes can see today. There are miracles being prepared in the hidden place of heaven before they appear in the reality of man. I only want you to keep walking with trust. You do not need to understand everything. You do not need to always feel strong. You only need to stay close enough to me that you do not lose the calling within your soul. And then a day will come when you look back on this journey and realize the seasons that seemed like delays were actually the very place where I was shaping you into someone strong enough to carry what I had promised from the beginning. There are nights when I allow silence to cover your soul, not so that you will sink deeper into confusion, but so that you will stop running from the calling that is rising from the deepest place within you. Beloved child, I have seen the moment your heart suddenly trembles in the night, when all the noise of the world recedes behind you, and only the truth remains standing face to face with your soul. You try to call it tiredness. You try to explain it with pressure, with long days of exhaustion, with the marks left by life. But I know what is happening within you more clearly than you understand yourself. There is a part of your soul that has been withering for a long time. And the more you try to cover it with a false appearance of peace, the more that emptiness seems to grow. I do not blame you for that. I know you have spent too long trying to be strong in your own way. I know there are pains you have never told anyone about, cracks you have always hidden behind a smile. But child, a soul cannot be healed simply by pretending it has never been broken. I have placed gentle stirrings within your heart, like a light breeze passing over the surface of a lake in the early morning. There are times when your heart sinks and you do not understand why. There are times when even in the middle of a crowd, you still feel so lonely that it nearly suffocates you. There are times when you look at everything around you and it still appears intact. Yet inside you feel as something is slowly collapsing. That is not punishment, child. It is my call to the part of your soul that has gone too long without being cared for by true light. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, as Proverbs 3:5 reminds you, because many times your mind tries to tell you that everything is still fine, while your soul is kneeling in weariness that you do not dare to acknowledge. You are like Elijah in the wilderness long ago. After many days of battle, he sat down under a broom tree and asked to die, because he thought he no longer had enough strength to keep going. He thought everything had come to an end, that all he had left was exhaustion and loneliness. But I did not come to him through thunder or a violent storm. I came through a gentle voice in the silence. I sent an angel to bring him bread and water, so he could rest before continuing the journey. Do you see? There are times when what your soul needs is not to force itself to endure even more, but to turn back and let me touch the weariness you have always kept hidden. Many people think faith means always being strong and never trembling. But I tell you this, true faith is when you dare to open your weakness before me and allow me to sustain you. Beloved child, I know you have built yourself a shelter out of habits, business, and the things that keep you from facing the dark places within. You tell yourself that as long as you keep walking, keep working, and keep staying silent, every wound will remain asleep, but the things buried deep do not disappear simply because you turn your face away. They quietly grow in the silence until your soul no longer has the strength to carry them. That is why I allow your heart to tremble. I allow sleepless nights to draw you into stillness. I allow you to recognize that some things have drifted away from the path I intended for your life, not to condemn you, but to save you before numbness swallows the light within you. I have never taken my eyes off you, even in the days when you were farthest from me, when you smiled at the world while your heart was full of emptiness. I still saw. When you tried to make everything perfect to hide your insecurity, I still understood. And when you thought no one noticed that your soul was exhausted, I was already there. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. As Psalm 34:18 says, you do not need to keep pretending that you are fine before me. I am not the crowd before whom you must perform strength. I am your Father. I want you to stop holding yourself together alone, and let me enter the places you have always kept locked. There are things within you that broke open last night, not to destroy you, but so the final mask could fall away. For a vessel can only be filled when it is willing to open. I know you are afraid to face the truth. You fear that if you stop, all the emotions you have suppressed for so long will pour out like a flood. But child, the very place where your tears touch the ground is where I begin to sow seeds of healing. Do not be afraid of your tenderness. A heart that can still feel pain is better than a soul that has become so hardened it can no longer feel anything at all. I do not want you to live like a shadow, passing through the days. I want you to live with a soul awakened. Remember Jacob on the night he wrestled with the angel beside the Jabbok River. That was the night he could no longer run from his past, no longer avoid his fear or his old identity. He entered into a sacred wrestling until the dawn broke, and then I changed his name, and with it his whole being. The same is true for you. There are nights when I allow your soul to be shaken, so you will stop living under the name of hurt, disappointment, and self-deception. I am calling you into a new identity, one where you are no longer defined by the things that broke you, but by the love I have for you. So today, do not return to the old sleep of your soul. Do not keep soothing yourself with false comforts, telling yourself that everything will somehow become fine on its own. What you need is not another layer of covering, but true light entering the deepest place of your heart. I am standing at the door of your heart and gently calling, not with force, but with a love that has never grown weary. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him. As Revelation 3:20 says, Beloved child, I do not come to take away your true self. I come to rescue you from everything that is causing your soul to slowly die in silence. And then you will realize that what broke open within you that night was not truly the end. It was the moment light began to slip into the darkest places. It was the hour when I awakened the part of your soul that had slept for too long. Beneath the weight of fear and weariness, you have not been forgotten. You have not gone too far from my hand. Even now, while your heart still trembles among unanswered questions, I am holding your soul with a tenderness this world can never give you. Beloved child, I know there are moments when you wonder why your heart suddenly trembles in the midst of days that seem most ordinary. It is not by chance that there are nights when you startle awake with an emptiness you cannot name. It is not without reason that your eyes sometimes sting with tears. Even when no one has hurt you in that moment, your soul has been speaking for a very long time. But the world has been so noisy that you learned how to ignore it. I have left very gentle touches along your journey. A glance that made your heart fall silent. A dream that caused you to wake with a lump in your throat. A sudden quietness in the middle of a crowd that made you feel as though you were losing something incredibly precious. That is not weakness. It is the deepest part of you trying to awaken the rest of your soul. Child, there are people who pass through the years while their hearts slowly turn to stone. They laugh, work, speak, and walk like everyone else. But inside there remains only a cold emptiness. I do not want you to become like that. I did not create you merely to exist like a shadow, repeating the same days again and again until you forget that you were born with a soul that knows how to love, how to be moved, and how to weep for the pain of others. I came that they may have life, and have it abundantly, as John 10:7-10 says. And that life is not only breath within the body, but the sacred fire still burning inside your heart. When the soul loses that light, you may still appear alive before the eyes of the world, but inwardly you begin to wither without even realizing it. I have seen the times when you tried to fill the emptiness with business. You pulled yourself into work, into laughter, into the things that kept your mind from having to stop. But the more you ran, the more you felt that something was following behind you, not to harm you, but to call you to turn back. There are nights when you feel as though eyes are quietly watching over you, full of sorrow, yet also full of love. Do not be afraid of that, for true love always aches when it sees the soul. It loves slowly falling asleep in the darkness. I do not send these stirrings to condemn you, nor to make you panic. I simply do not want you to keep living separated from the purest part that I placed within you from the beginning. Remember Samuel when he was still a child in the temple. In the middle of the night, he heard a voice calling his name. Samuel thought it was the voice of Eli the priest, so he ran to him several times. But then he realized that it was I who was calling him. At that time Samuel was still young and did not understand what was happening. Yet he answered, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening, beloved child." As this awakening grows inside you, know that helping with this mission is not a joke. It is a sign from God. You can support this work through the link in the description or the pinned comment, whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself, Jesus says. This is not history. It is a living promise about your future. Come into this moment with faith and a plan. What God has already planned for your life can be unlocked through your giving. Your soul has also heard such a call many times. Not through a loud and thunderous sound, but through hidden tremblings deep within your heart, through dreams that make you wake with wet eyes, through the aching feeling that rises when you see someone suffering, through the vague sadness that comes when you realize you are gradually becoming a stranger to yourself. I am still calling you, not to take your life away from you, but to bring you back to the light you have forgotten. Do not think that numbness is maturity. Some people call the loss of feeling strength. But I tell you this, a heart that can no longer be moved is a heart that is exhausted when you stop hurting before the pain of others. Stop being touched by what is good, and stop listening to the voice of conscience. Your soul begins to sink into the most dangerous sleep. And the deepest tragedy is not the death of the body, but the slow forgetting of who you are in my eyes. For what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? As Mark 8:36 says, the world may give you fame, money, or applause, but if your soul gradually runs out of light, all of those things will eventually become empty. I do not blame you for losing your way in a world full of chaos. I know there are too many things that have made you weary. There are wounds that taught you to close your heart in order to protect yourself. There are disappointments that caused you to stop believing in goodness. But child, the part of you that once believed in what is good has not died. It is only waiting to be awakened. I still see the child you once were within you, the child who could be moved by a small act of kindness, who once believed that love could heal human beings, who once prayed with a sincere heart, without calculation. I want to bring you back to that place. Not so you will become weak, but so your soul may come back to life. There are souls I send near you, not to control or force you, but to remind you that you still have light. They do not come with anger. True love does not begin with condemnation. It begins with the pain of seeing the one it loves losing themselves. Like the father in the parable of the prodigal son, who stood watching at the door day after day. I have also waited patiently for you through every season of wandering. That father did not run out to rebuke his son for making mistakes. He only waited for the day his child would return, so he could embrace him with a love that had never changed. Beloved child, I am waiting for you in the same way, not waiting for a perfect person, but for a soul willing to awaken. So today, do not continue ignoring the call within your heart. Do not let indifference cover with dust the heart I created to know how to love. Do not let the years turn you into an empty shell that knows how to smile, but no longer knows how to live. I am calling you back to true life, where your soul is no longer swallowed by cold silence, where you stop merely existing like a machine, following the rhythm of life, and begin to live as a child who knows they are loved by the one who created them. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you, as Ezekiel 36:26 says, and when you open your heart to me, the part of your soul that seemed to have fallen asleep will be awakened again by light, peace, and love that never fades. Beloved child, there are times when you think you have become strong simply because you have learned how to stay silent before pain. You think that no longer crying means you have been healed. You think that hiding every wound deep within is a sign of maturity. But child, a soul cannot become healthy by covering the places that are still bleeding. The toughness the world praises is often only armor hiding an exhausted heart. I never created you to live like a cold wall with no feeling left. I created you with a heart that knows how to be moved, how to love, how to ache when others ache, and how to seek the light even after the darkest seasons. You have tried to tell yourself that you are fine. You turned silence into a shelter. You locked painful memories into the deepest corner of your soul and kept walking as though nothing had ever happened. But I see what others do not see. I see every time you smile while your heart is empty. I see the nights when you lie down with a heart as heavy as stone. I see your soul weary from always having to play the role of someone who does not need to be healed. Child, no one is truly free while keeping their emotions imprisoned behind the bars of numbness. There are chains that do not lie on the hands or feet, but in the places where you refuse to face yourself. And because I love you, I do not want you to keep living as a prisoner within your own soul. The stirrings you feel do not come to pull you away from this life, but to draw you back to the true self I placed within you from the very beginning, before the world taught you that you had to be stronger, colder, and hide your tears in order to be accepted. There was once someone within you who was gentle and sincere. You once knew how to be moved by what was good. You once believed that love could heal. You once looked at the sky with a heart still full of hope. But then wounds, betrayals, and disappointments gradually made you build walls around your heart. I understand why you did that. A heart that has been hurt often learns to protect itself. But if that wall becomes too thick, it does not only keep pain from entering, it also keeps light from coming out. Remember Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused and forgotten in a dark prison for many long years. To human eyes, those sufferings may have looked like destruction, but in those very dark years, I was preparing his soul for something far greater. Without the deep pit of that day, Joseph would not have become the one who saved an entire nation from famine. Do you see? Pain is not always a sign that I have abandoned you. There are wounds that become doors through which wisdom, compassion, and light enter the soul. We know that all things work together for good to those who love God. As Romans 8:28 says, that does not mean everything is pleasant, but that even the thing that hurts you most, I can still turn into a path leading you into deeper life. Beloved child, do not be afraid of the cracks within you. The world often teaches you to hide them. But I tell you this, the place where you are most broken is often the very place where my light enters most clearly. A seed that wants to sprout must break open in the dark soil. A clay vessel that wants to shine must have openings for the lamp inside to give light outward, and a soul that wants to truly come back to life must dare to face the places that once caused it pain. I am not calling you into despair. I am calling you into honesty. For only when you stop running from yourself can you begin to be truly healed. There are souls I place near you to remind you that you have never been forgotten. They do not come to condemn your past. True love does not begin with accusation. It begins with a gentle call to the part of the soul that has fallen asleep, just as the shepherd leaves the 99 to search for the one that is lost. I have never stopped seeking you through the labyrinths of fear and numbness. I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. As John Tundine Livin says, you are not a soul abandoned in the darkness. You are the child I have always watched over with tireless love. And then amid all the chaos of life, I still leave within you a very distinct sound, a sound that only your soul can recognize. It is the sound of hope that has not yet died, the sound of forgiveness opening the door for you to return, the call that says, everything is not as late as you have imagined. Perhaps you have made mistakes. Perhaps you have wandered very far from the person you once were. But child, as long as your heart can still tremble before the light, it means your soul still has a way home. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. As Lamentations 3:22-23 says, my grace does not run dry simply because you are weak. I will not tell you that the journey ahead will no longer carry pain. There are doors within your heart that when opened will cause tears to flow. There are memories you must look back on with a courage greater than you ever thought you possessed. But I know something that even you sometimes forget. Your heart was not created to surrender to the darkness. I placed within you the ability to rise again after falling, the ability to love after being wounded, and the ability to believe again, even when disappointment once made you want to close your heart forever. So today, do not continue living like a soul that is asleep. Let me bring you back to yourself, not the version shaped by the world through fear and pain, but the whole person I saw from the very beginning, tender yet not weak, fragile yet full of light, and carrying in your heart a flame that was never born to go out in this life. Beloved child, I want you to know that the good things that once existed within your soul have not disappeared as you have thought. The world may make you wary. The long years may cover your heart with dust. Wounds may cause you to forget how gentle and pure you once were. But child, the light I placed within you is not so easily extinguished. It may have weakened amid the cold winds of life. And at times you may have thought only ashes remained, but deep beneath those ashes, the fire is still quietly burning. And as soon as you stop running from yourself, you will see it begin to shine again. There are things within you waiting to be awakened, not a false version that the world has forced you to carry, but your true self. The one who once knew how to be moved by what is good, who once knew how to love without calculation, who once believed that kindness could still heal broken souls. I have never forgotten that person. Even when you forgot yourself, I still remembered. I have called you by your name, you are mine. As Isaiah 43:1 says, you are not an unnamed soul lost in the chaos of life. You are the child I knew before you ever cried your first cry. And the pure part I placed within you has always been seeking its way back to the light. That is why I allow moments of silence to enter your life. There are nights when I do not take away the stillness around you, because it is precisely in that quietness that your soul is no longer covered by the noise of the world. When everything slows down, you begin to hear the things you have long tried to forget. You begin to realize that there is a part of your heart still crying, still longing to be healed, to be loved, and to live truthfully. Do not be afraid of those emotions, beloved child. A soul that can still feel pain has more hope than a heart that has turned to stone after denying its emotions for too long. Remember the story of the prophet Jonah. When I called him to go to Nineveh, he ran far away because he was afraid and did not want to face what I had entrusted to him. He boarded a ship, fleeing from the sacred call, thinking that if he went far enough, he could escape the stirring within his soul. But then in the midst of the violent storm, when everything around him was shaking, Jonah began to realize that what exhausted him was not the waves outside, but the fact that he kept running from what was deepest within his own heart. There are times when you are the same. You think you are running from pain, but in truth, you are running from healing. And I do not allow you to sink into the depths in order to destroy you, but to bring you back to the surface with a new heart. Beloved child, learning to face pain does not mean allowing it to swallow you. It means becoming gentle enough with yourself to look at your wounds without shame. There are people who spend their whole lives avoiding the darkness within them. But the more they run, the more they lose themselves. I do not want you to live that way. I want you to learn how to walk through long nights while still keeping your eyes toward the dawn. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. As Psalm 23:4 says, dawn does not come because the darkness disappears immediately, but because the light faithfully appears even while the darkness remains. In the same way, healing does not begin when all pain ends, but when you stop turning your back on the light. I know there were times when you felt completely alone. There were nights when you thought no one could truly understand what was happening within your soul. But child, you have never had to walk alone. I was with you in every fall no one saw. I was there when you sat in silence with weary eyes. I was there when you smiled before everyone while your heart was breaking, and the gentle stirrings you feel are not meant to frighten you. They are reminders that your soul is still loved, and that there is still a place for you to return to. There are sacred connections deeper than any human words, where light is always quietly drawing you out of the abyss, even when you do not realize it. Beloved child, the day you stop running will be the day you begin to live again. When you dare to name your fear, instead of hiding it in the darkness, you will realize it no longer has the same power it once had. When you stop covering your soul with a false mask of strength, you will see that weakness placed in my hands can become a new strength. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. As 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, you do not need to save yourself by your own strength. I have never required you to be perfect before you are worthy of being healed. And then little by little, you will understand that what awaits you ahead is not an ending, but a new beginning. I am not calling you back in order to imprison you in the past. I am calling you back so you may truly live. There are many people who exist through the years. While their souls have long been asleep, they breathe but no longer feel. They walk but no longer hope. I do not want that for you. I want you to live with a heart that can still tremble before the light, still hope after disappointment, and still love even after being wounded. So today, listen deeply within your heart. In every breath you still have, I have placed new life there. In every heartbeat still sounding within your chest, hope is still present. And even the smallest spark of light that you think is about to go out, I can still breathe upon it until it becomes a flame that illuminates your whole soul. The chance to begin again is not waiting in some distant day. It is here in this very moment, when you decide to stop turning your back on the light and allow me to lead you back to the true life your soul has always longed for. Beloved child, there are things the world has taught you that have made you misunderstand the strength of the soul. People often call a heart that knows how to cry weak, and a person who is easily moved fragile. So you learned to hold back your tears, to smile while you were breaking inside, to stay silent before your own pain, so no one would see your wounds. But child, I tell you this, a soul that can still feel pain has never been a dead soul. The true danger is when your heart can no longer feel anything at all, no longer moved by love, no longer trembling before beauty, no longer aching when you see others suffer. When light no longer moves you in darkness, no longer frightens you, that is the sign of a soul slowly growing exhausted in silence. I have seen each day as your heart gradually became weary. At first, it was only a few times when you swallowed your emotions because you thought you had to be stronger. Then, little by little, you became used to hiding everything that was truly happening within your heart. There were moments when you wanted to speak, wanted to say that you were hurting, wanted to admit that you were not okay, but in the end, you chose silence. Not because you did not need to be loved, but because you were afraid of becoming a burden. You feared that if others saw all the cracks within your heart, they would leave. And so you built walls around your heart, each brick made of disappointment, wounds, and the times you were misunderstood. You thought they would protect you from pain, but then those very walls also kept the light from entering. Beloved child, I see the forced smiles that others mistake for peace. I see the loneliness within you, even when you are standing in the middle of a crowd. I see your soul like a city. After a great storm, the roads are still there, but inside are broken pieces no one has touched. And there have been times when I tried to touch your heart through very small things, a ray of morning sunlight that suddenly made you fall silent, a song that brought tears to your eyes, a dream that caused you to wake with an unnamed ache in your throat. That was not coincidence. That was love trying to find its way back to your soul. Remember the woman who touched the hem of Jesus' garment in the middle of the crowd. She had carried her illness for 12 years, living in pain and isolation, until she had almost lost hope. But amid that pressing sea of people that day, she quietly reached out her hand with a small faith that said, "If I only touch his garment, I will be healed." And when that trembling hand touched the hem of his robe, healing power came. Do you see? What saved her soul was not that she was strong, but that she still had enough longing to seek the light after long years of suffering. The same is true for you, beloved child. As long as there is still a part of you that wants to be healed, I can still touch you and renew your soul. Do not force yourself to change overnight. I do not work within your soul the way the world runs after haste. A tree does not grow in a single day, and a wounded heart cannot come back to life through only a few moments of effort. Healing is a journey of small steps, of each time you become honest with yourself, of each time you stop blaming yourself for being weak. There are memories you need to face, not in order to condemn yourself, but to understand that you are also only a human being learning how to love in a world full of collisions. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. As Psalm 147:3 says, I am not pressuring you to become perfect immediately. I only want you to stop abandoning yourself. There are nights when you wonder why you feel so lonely, even though there are still people around you. But child, the greatest loneliness is not when no one is beside you. It is when you no longer allow anyone to enter your soul. The walls you built to avoid pain have also kept love from reaching you. You became cautious toward care, suspicious of sincerity, and gradually grew used to holding your own sadness in silence. But I have never stopped standing before that door. True love does not leave simply because you close your heart. It waits patiently, just like the father who stood day after day looking down the distant road, waiting for the prodigal son to return. You are about to enter your divine future. Remember that this message does not end with you. People can use your breakthrough to get where they need to go through the link in the description or the pinned comment, whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community. You can help this mission. By doing so, you are sowing into the awakening, deliverance, and restoration of souls who are still trapped in darkness. This is not poetry when Jesus says, "Give, and heaven will open over you." Every seed you plant turns into oil for your destiny, fire for your calling, and safety for your family. Now is your time, my child. Have faith, and as you do, watch God multiply what you let go of. I too have quietly waited many times for you to open your heart again. Beloved child, what grieves me is not that you once stumbled, but that you began to believe you were no longer worthy of being loved. No, you have not lost your worth simply because you have been wounded so deeply. Your heart is not grown cold. It is only exhausted after too many days of trying to hold itself together alone. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not quench. As Isaiah 42:3 says, even the smallest spark of light left within you, I cherish as something precious. I do not come to break you down with judgment. I come to gently gather every broken piece you thought could never be restored. So today, allow yourself to soften a little. You do not need to strain yourself to prove that you are strong. You do not need to keep living as though you must save yourself on your own. Learn to rest in my love. Learn to cry without shame. Learn to open the door of your heart, even if only by the smallest crack, so that light can enter. Then day by day, you will realize that your soul is coming back to life, not through a loud thunderclap, but through gentle things. A morning when your heart feels more at peace, a moment when you can be moved by beauty again, a time when you embrace someone with sincerity and no longer fear. And then you will understand that true love has never left you. It is still there in every whisper I send into your soul, and every time the light finds its way to you. Even when you think you are sinking into the deepest darkness, you have never been forgotten. Beloved child, I am still here, patient, gentle, and never ceasing to call you back to the very heart I created to love and to be loved. Beloved child, I want you to understand that life is not measured only by breath or by the years you pass through on this earth. True life is found in the fact that your heart can still be moved, and the very fact that you feel weary, that you long for something deeper, that your soul sometimes feels tender and fragile in the midst of life. This is not a sign that you are fading away. On the contrary, it is proof that the fire within you has not gone out. A soul that is truly dead no longer longs for the light, but you are still searching, still aching, because you want to be healed, still restless, because you want to live a life with deeper meaning. And I see that the way a gardener sees a green shoot still remaining after a long cold winter. There was a time when you were afraid of your own tenderness. You thought that if others saw the cracks in your heart, they would no longer respect you. So you learned to hide your tears behind a smile, to hide your loneliness behind strength, to hide your broken nights behind the words. But child, what makes a soul beautiful is not that it has never been wounded, but that after all those wounds, it still has the ability to love. A pane of glass that has never cracked will never know how beautifully light can be reflected through its fractures. In the same way, your heart could never have learned true gentleness if it had never passed through pain. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. As Matthew 5:4 says, I have never been ashamed of your tears. It is often in your most honest tears that I begin my deepest work of healing. Beloved child, there are memories that once made you want to turn your face away. There were seasons when you thought you would never be able to overcome them. But now, I am teaching you to look back at those things with different eyes, not with bitterness, but with compassion toward yourself. For the person you were yesterday did everything they could with a heart still full of wounds. Do not continue condemning the former version of yourself. Embrace that person with the same gentleness you have always given to others. I do not want you to live forever at war with yourself. I want you to learn how to love even the parts of your soul that were once broken, because those very places will one day become a source of compassion for others. Remember Peter on the night he denied the Lord 3 times. He wept bitterly because he thought he was no longer worthy. The disciple who had once promised to remain faithful, even unto death, fell in a moment of fear. But I did not cast him away because of that failure. After I rose again, the first thing I did was not to rebuke him, but to ask him, "Do you love me?" For I knew that a heart once shattered by regret could become a place capable of carrying greater mercy than many others. And Peter himself, the one who had once been fearful and weak, later became someone who strengthened so many other souls. The same is true for you, beloved child. The times you fell were not meant to define you forever. They are only part of the journey that makes your heart deeper, gentler, and more able to love truly. There will be mornings when you wake up and suddenly realize that your heart is a little more peaceful than it was yesterday. Not because every problem has disappeared, but because your soul is beginning to learn how to breathe again in the light. Some healing comes very quietly, like the sun rising little by little, without anyone hearing a sound. You will find yourself beginning to love simple things again, a ray of sunlight passing through the window, a sincere embrace, the sound of birds in the morning, or the feeling of being able to sit still without fighting against yourself anymore. That is not coincidence. Beloved child, it is a sign that your soul is coming back to life after a long season of weariness. And I tell you something very beautiful. A day will come when the wounds that once hurt you will become the very places through which you help heal others. There are souls out there who are lost just as you once were lost. They are smiling while breaking inside. They are trying so hard to be strong that they have forgotten how to cry for help. And when you have walked far enough on your own healing journey, I will use your very story to kindle hope in them, not through perfect sermons, but through honesty, through your ability to look into the eyes of someone in despair and say, "I understand that feeling. I have been in that darkness, but the light still found its way to me." Just as the Good Samaritan stopped by the roadside to care for the wounded man while everyone else passed by, you too will learn how to stop because of the pain of others. Not because you are stronger than they are, but because you know what it feels like to be left behind. And those who have walked through darkness are often the ones who know best how to hold a lamp for others. Bear one another's burdens. As Galatians 6:7-2 says, because true love does not keep light for itself, it spreads gently and steadfastly from one soul to another like a candle passing on its flame, without losing its own light. Beloved child, the most precious thing is not found in the great miracles you are waiting for, but in the fact that your heart is beginning to believe again. To believe that healing is real. To believe that the past has no right to end your future. To believe that even after the darkest days, your soul can bloom again. That faith does not need every question to be answered. It does not need perfect reasoning or clear evidence. It only needs a heart brave enough to open the door and let hope enter. So today, do not be afraid to remain tender in a world that often praises hardness. Do not be ashamed that you still know how to cry, still know how to ache, still know how to love. These very things prove that your soul is still alive, and I am still here, gently walking with you through every small step of this journey of revival, until the day you not only find the light again for yourself, but also become light for other souls lost in the long night. Beloved child, there are seasons in life when your soul will stand before a very profound threshold. It is not a door made of wood or stone that your eyes can see, but the door of choice within the soul. And when that moment comes, you cannot keep standing between two sides like someone who only wants to preserve a safe place for themselves. For light and darkness cannot rule the same heart together. No one can serve two masters. As Matthew 6:24 says, because in the end, your soul will lean toward what it chooses to nourish each day, either life or numbness. I do not say this to plant fear in your heart. I say it because I love you too much to watch you continue sleeping among illusions that slowly drain the light from your soul. There are people who think they are still fine simply because their outward life has not collapsed. They still laugh, still move through the days, still do what must be done, but deep within, their souls have long drifted away from true life. The greatest danger is not when a person cries because of pain, but when they no longer feel anything at all, when indifference becomes a habit, when the call of conscience becomes only a faint sound, forgotten amid the business of life. Child, I do not want your heart to sink into that kind of darkness, the kind of darkness that does not come with thunder, but through a gradual cooling of the soul. Beloved child, I have placed many signs before you, not to force you, but to awaken you, the emptiness you feel after fleeting pleasures, the weariness you cannot explain, even when everything outwardly seems sufficient, the times when you pray, yet your heart feels more distant instead of more at peace. You thought it was abandonment, but no, I have never left you. There are times when I remain silent, not because I have turned my face away, but because I am waiting for your heart to stop running. Like a father watching his child stand at a crossroads, unable to choose for them, yet aching as he waits for them to return. I too am standing there, not forcing, not compelling, only quietly waiting for you to choose the light. Remember the rich young man who ran to Jesus and asked about the way to eternal life. He was moral, he had status, and he possessed everything the world considers valuable. But when he was called to let go of the thing that was holding his heart back, he went away sorrowful, not because the Lord did not love him, but because he was not yet ready to leave the cage he had grown accustomed to living in. Do you see? Sometimes what keeps a soul far from the light is not obvious evil, but prolonged hesitation. It is knowing what is right, yet still delaying the step forward. It is hearing the call yet continuing to turn away because of the fear of change. And little by little, that delay hardens the soul without you even realizing it. I know there is a part of you that feels something is closing. Not merely a passing season, but a sacred invitation reaching a decisive moment. There are opportunities that are not lost because I stop loving you, but because your soul keeps standing still before an open door. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. As Hebrews 3:15 says, child, every time you ignore the light, returning becomes a little harder. Not because I move away from you, but because your heart is learning to become accustomed to the darkness. A room that has been shut for too long will eventually forget the scent of open air and sunlight, but I still speak to you today with all the gentleness of a father. The door has not fully closed. The flame within you has not gone out. The fact that you still hurt, still wrestle within, still feel empty before the false things of this world, is proof that your soul has not completely surrendered to the darkness. If you had truly lost all light, you would no longer be searching. But you are still listening, still longing for something more real, deeper, purer, and I will not take lightly that cry of your soul. Do not wait until everything within your heart has grown cold before you return. Do not let hesitation cause you to miss the season of revival I am opening before you. I do not need you to be perfect immediately. I only need you to be honest. Honest that you are tired. Honest that you need to be healed. Honest that the things you once used to fill your soul are no longer enough. It is in that very honesty that light begins to enter. For a soul that bows down in repentance is always closer to heaven than a proud heart that thinks it has no need to change anything. Beloved child, I did not create you to live half in light and half in darkness. I created you to become light. But light cannot burn brightly in a heart that keeps clinging to numbness and fear. So today, choose life. Choose to open your heart instead of continuing to close it. Choose forgiveness instead of holding on to bitterness. Choose the truth even if it makes you face the wounds you once tried to hide. I have set before you life and death, therefore choose life. As Deuteronomy 30:19 says, and if you move toward me, even with one small trembling step, you will see that I have been running toward you for a very long time, not with judgment, but with open arms, not to remind you of all your mistakes, but to clothe you again with the robe of grace. Just as the father ran out to embrace the prodigal son, before he could even finish his words of repentance, I am waiting for you in the same way. For what I long for most is not to see you afraid before a closing door, but to see you brave enough to step toward the light before your soul completely forgets the way home. Beloved child, there are touches upon your soul that do not come through thunder or signs, so great that the whole world must tremble. The true love of the sacred realm often comes very softly. It does not force. It does not break down the door of your heart in order to rush in. It stands outside, patient and gentle, waiting for a moment when you are still enough to recognize that you are being called. I have allowed those stirrings to pass through your life like a thin morning breeze, so gentle that if your heart is too noisy, you may think they are only fleeting emotions without meaning, and let them drift away. There are souls who once loved you with a very deep love while they were still on this earth. They once held you through the years when you were still small and helpless. Once prayed for you before you even knew you needed prayer. Once looked at you with eyes full of hope, even when you did not yet believe in yourself. And true love does not disappear simply because of the distance between two realms. But child, the love of heaven does not work through force. I did not create your soul as a being to be dragged along by chains. I created you with freedom. The freedom to choose the light or to turn away from it. That is why the reminders you receive are often very fragile. A memory suddenly returning. A dream that makes your heart tighten. An unexplainable feeling when the morning light touches the window. These are gentle fingers trying to awaken the deepest part within you. Beloved child, I know that many times you have dismissed these things as mere imagination. You have reassured yourself that all those stirrings would eventually pass. And yes, they can pass. Not because love has stopped calling you, but because your heart has gradually become used to not answering. There are doors in the soul that do not slam shut in a single moment. They close very slowly, very quietly, little by little, like a lamp gradually fading, because no one is tending its oil. Each time you delay awakening, each time you choose business instead of truth, the hinge of that door shifts a little more. No one hears that sound except your soul, but deep within, you still feel it. An emptiness growing larger, a distance you cannot name. Remember Samson, the man who once carried extraordinary strength from heaven. He thought he could always return as before, always rise again after each time he traded what was sacred for fleeting pleasure. But then one day, after too many times of taking holiness lightly, his strength left him without him even realizing it. Scripture says he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. As Judges 16:20 records, child, the most dangerous thing is not when light disappears with a loud noise, but when the soul slowly grows so accustomed to darkness that it no longer realizes the light has withdrawn. I do not tell you this to make you afraid, but so you may understand that sacred things must always be answered with watchfulness and reverence. Heaven is not a place simply waiting to condemn you. No, beloved child, my mercy is wider than every ocean your eyes have ever seen. But mercy is not an invitation for the soul to sleep forever in delay. No matter how gentle a river may be, it still has its current, and a heart that continually turns away from the light will gradually lose the ability to see that light anymore. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near, as Isaiah 55:6 says, not because I delight in hiding from you, but because I know how easily the human heart can grow hardened when it keeps postponing its return. You once thought that if there were truly an important moment, it would come through something grand, a resounding call, a shocking event, an undeniable sign. But child, the final warnings are often very small, like the prophet Elijah long ago, standing on the mountain and expecting to meet me in the strong wind, in the earthquake, or in the great fire. Yet I was not in those things. I came in a still small voice, as 1 Kings 19:12 records. Heaven often speaks in a whisper, because only a soul that is truly listening can recognize it. If your heart is too full of the noise of the world, that whisper can easily be swallowed by the haste of ordinary days. I want you to stop today, not in fear, but in honesty. Ask your soul, what is causing you to drift farther from the light? What keeps making you delay your return to true peace? Have you become so accustomed to fleeting pleasures that you have forgotten the deeper life? Have you used business to cover the cry of your soul? I do not ask in order to condemn you. I ask because I do not want your days to pass by while your heart remains standing outside the door of true life. Beloved child, the door has not yet closed. Even the fact that you still feel stirred when hearing these words is a sign that the light is still touching your soul. A heart that has grown completely cold no longer trembles, but you are still listening. You are still feeling that something is calling you back, and I speak to you with all the gentleness of a father. Do not take those small stirrings lightly. They may be as fragile as breath, but many times they are the final thread drawing your soul back before darkness becomes a familiar place. So today, learn to listen to the gentle things. Cherish the moments of silence I place within your day. Allow the small rays of light the chance to enter your heart, instead of hurriedly filling every empty space with the noise of the world. For sometimes, what changes an entire soul is not a dazzling miracle, but the moment when they finally stop long enough to hear the gentle call that heaven has patiently sent to them through so many years. Beloved child, there are times when you think the things you do in the darkness will simply vanish like mist, that enough time will bury every trace, and that, if you remain silent long enough, your conscience will eventually stop speaking. But child, I created this universe through truth and order, not through chaos. Every word, every choice, every action that comes from your heart carries within it a seed of its own. The seed of gentleness will give birth to peace. The seed of deceit will give birth to brokenness. Not because I delight in punishment, but because this is the deep law of life. Whatever a man sows, that he will also reap, as Galatians 6:7 says. I do not say this to make you tremble, but to awaken within you the honesty your soul needs in order to be healed. Beloved child, what causes a soul to drift far from the light is not only the mistakes they have made, but the moment they begin persuading themselves that they no longer need to turn back. There are people who fall and still know how to weep in repentance, and they are lifted up. But there are also people who keep walking deeper into darkness, simply because pride will not allow them to bow their heads and acknowledge the truth. Child, I am not grieved by the times you stumble as much as I am grieved when you gradually become a stranger to the voice of conscience. For a soul that can still feel remorse has not completely lost the light. But when you begin to call wrong right, to call numbness strength, and to call avoidance freedom, that is when darkness is quietly building a dwelling place within your heart. I know there are memories you want to bury forever, words you wish you had never spoken. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission will grow into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Giving to this work through the link in the description or the pinned comment, whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through hearts that are kind. This is what I say over you now. Each gift you give is like a stream of living water that flows into the life of someone who needs healing. Give, and it will be given to you is not just a verse for Jesus. It is a living promise that shapes your future. Allow me to invite you now with a simple act of faith. Come into this moment with purpose, with honesty, and with hope. The money you give today is not a donation. The act of spiritual obedience that lets your heavens open is what opens them. Let go of your seed and see what God brings back into your life. Wounds you caused others while you yourself were breaking inside. But child, healing does not begin with forgetting. It begins with truth. A wound covered for too long will quietly decay within. Only when it is brought into the light can it be cleansed and healed. That is why I have placed small opportunities before you many times to return an apology. A moment of honesty. A time to lower your pride and embrace what is right. Not to humiliate you, but to save your soul from becoming so hardened that it can no longer love. Remember King David. After he sinned and tried to hide his wrongdoing, he thought he could continue as though nothing had happened. But his soul gradually became exhausted in silence. And then when the prophet Nathan came, instead of continuing to run away, David bowed down and confessed, I have sinned against the Lord. The very moment he stopped justifying himself was the moment restoration began. Do you see? What saves a soul is not that it has never done wrong, but that it is still soft enough to return to the truth, a broken and contrite heart. O God, you will not despise. As Psalm 51:17 says, I have never sought flawless perfection in you. I seek a heart that knows how to repent, and dares to step back into the light. Beloved child, the abyss you feel before you is not a place I have built out of hatred. No, I do not look at you with anger the way human beings often do. What grieves me is not that you are weak, but that many times you have pulled yourself away from the source of light that can heal you. A branch separated from the vine slowly withers, not because the vine hates it, but because it has moved away from the source of life. In the same way, each time you turn your back on truth, on mercy, on the voice of conscience, your soul moves a little farther from the life I have prepared for it. And the most frightening thing is not losing possessions or reputation, but reaching a point where your heart no longer wants to return. But listen to me carefully, beloved child, as long as you can still hear this call. The door of grace has not yet closed. The fact that you still feel remorse, still wrestle within, still fear losing the light, is proof that your soul has not completely sunk into darkness. A heart that is truly dead no longer wants to change. But you are still standing here, still listening, still feeling these words touch the deepest place within you, and I speak to you with all the gentleness of a father. Do not mistake consequences for rejection. There are things you must face, not because I have stopped loving you, but because I love you too much to let you continue destroying your soul without awakening. I know you regret the opportunities that have slipped through your fingers like sand. There are apologies you did not speak in time. There are doors you thought you would always have time to return to. And yes, there are seasons in life that will not come back exactly as they once were, but I am the one who can cause a soul to be born again, even amid the ashes of mistakes. What I need from you is not despair, but surrender. Stop resisting the truth. Stop trying to justify the things your conscience knows are wrong, for only when you stop running can I begin to rebuild what has been broken within you. As I live, declares the Lord God, I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but rather that the wicked turn from his way and live. As Ezekiel 33:11 says, Child, heaven does not rejoice when a soul is lost. What I have always longed for most is to see you turn back before your heart becomes completely hardened. So today, do not let fear drive you into despair, and do not let delay lull you to sleep any longer. Step into the light with honesty. Bow your head if you need to. Apologize if you must. Let the tears fall if your soul has gone too long without being allowed to cry. For the greatest miracle is not a person who has never fallen. The greatest miracle is a soul that once wandered very far, yet still has the courage to return. And if you move toward me, even with trembling feet and a wounded heart, you will see that my arms have never once closed against you. Beloved child, there are moments in life when every layer of fog around the soul begins to clear, and you can no longer continue living by old illusions. Not because I want to drive you into fear, but because truth always comes at last like morning light entering a room that has been shut for too long. And when that light touches you, your soul will begin to understand that no word is meaningless and no choice disappears completely into nothingness. Everything you sow into life, whether gentleness or pride, truthfulness or deceit, quietly forms the path on which your soul will walk. But child, do not bow your head like a hopeless one who thinks they have been cast out from mercy. Bow your head is one who has finally understood that truth does not come to destroy the soul, but to save it from continuing to wander. There are people who only truly awaken after seeing the consequences of their own actions. There are hearts that only soften when they realize they have gone too far from peace. And I am still speaking to you today, because the door of understanding has not yet fully closed. A soul that can still tremble before the truth is not a soul that has lost all light. Beloved child, the world often calls consequences punishment, but many times they are only the natural echo of what you have sown into your own heart and into the lives of others. If you sow bitterness, your soul will grow in dryness. If you sow deceit, peace will gradually leave your heart. And if you continually step past the warnings of conscience, there will come a time when only a cold emptiness remains within you. The one who sows to the flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, as Galatians 6:8 says, "But I say this not to push you into despair. I say it so you may understand that every choice is shaping your soul day by day. There are boundaries I set not to take away your freedom, but to protect the life within you, just as fire, when kept in its proper place, can warm a home, but when it crosses its boundary, can burn everything down. So pride and uncontrolled desire can burn your soul from within. There are sacred things that cannot be touched with arrogance or the hunger for power. When you try to grasp what does not belong to you, merely to exalt your own ego, you do not truly become greater. You only drift farther from the peace I have prepared for you. Remember the story of King Uzziah. He was once greatly blessed, lifted up in power and honor, but then pride led him into a place that was not meant for him, wanting to take hold of what was sacred by his own will instead of holy reverence. And at that very moment, his downfall began. Not because I delight in seeing human beings fail, but because when a soul separates itself from humility, it gradually loses the ability to recognize true light. Pride goes before destruction. As Proverbs 18 says, "Child, what makes a soul dangerous is not merely making a mistake, but beginning to believe that it has the right to stand above the truth." But I do not want you to read these words with a heart crushed by fear. I want you to read them with a soul that is awakening. For even when consequences have already begun to move, grace can still transform who you are in the midst of what is happening. There are things that cannot be reversed in time and erased. Yes, there are words that have wounded. There are actions that have left marks on others and on your own soul. But child, the difference between a soul that sinks and a soul that is restored lies in this: whether it is willing to let truth lead it to repentance. Do not think it is too late for your soul to be renewed. Remember the thief on the cross beside Jesus. He no longer had time to repair his life in the way human beings imagine. He could not go back and erase all his old mistakes. But in the final moment, when he honestly acknowledged himself and turned toward the light, he heard the words filled with mercy, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Do you see? What saves a soul is not that it has never gone down the wrong path, but that it finally turns its face toward the light, instead of continuing to sink into the darkness of pride and denial. Beloved child, I know there are things within your heart that make you tremble, the feeling that you have gone too far, hurt too deeply, crossed boundaries you should not have crossed. But listen to me carefully. The most dangerous thing is not that you have once been wrong. The most dangerous thing is when you stop believing that you can still return. That is the greatest lie of darkness, to make the soul think There is no road back to the light anymore. But if we confess our sins, He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins. As 1 John 1:9 says, I do not take sin lightly, but neither do I close the door of mercy to a soul that knows how to repent. So today, do not continue walking forward with a hardened heart. Let the truth soften you instead of driving you into despair. Learn to revere what is sacred, not through panic, but through humility. There are consequences you must face. Yes, but even in the midst of those consequences, your soul can still be born again if you stop resisting the light. Beloved child, I am not calling you to come, so I can crush you beneath the weight of judgment. I am calling you back before your heart completely forgets the way home. And if today you are willing to bow your head, not because you are being forced, but because you have finally understood the value of truth, then right in the place where you thought only ashes remained, I can still cause a new life to spring forth. Beloved child, I know you have grown used to living under constant strain for far too long. You learned to keep everything under control because you feared that if you let go, everything would fall apart. The world taught you that being strong means never collapsing, never letting anyone see your weakness, never admitting that you are tired. But child, there are burdens that were never created for your shoulders to carry alone. There are battles your soul cannot win by willpower alone, and there are moments when the bravest thing you can do is not to keep trying, but to kneel down and admit that you need to be healed. I have never considered surrender before me to be failure. It is precisely when you stop holding yourself together by your own strength that the door of true peace begins to open within your soul. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. As Matthew 11:28 says, I do not call you to come in order to prove that you are worthy. I call you to come like a child returning home after a long and exhausting journey. You do not need to become perfect before you can be loved by me. If perfection were the condition for drawing near to me, no soul would be able to step into the light. What I seek is not the strong mask you still wear before the world. I seek your true heart, the place still full of wounds, full of weariness, yet finally honest enough to say, Father, I can no longer save myself. Beloved child, I know there are things within your heart that have not been touched for far too long. The pains you have hidden beneath business, the fears you have covered with a smile, the things you know you need to let go of yet still cling to because you are afraid of the emptiness that may come afterward. I understand that a person who has grown used to living in chains can sometimes fear freedom even more than the old prison. But I tell you this, there will be no true healing if you keep holding on to the things that are quietly draining your soul. There are attachments you think are protecting you, but in truth, they are only drawing you farther and farther from peace. Remember Jacob on the night he wrestled with the angel beside the Jabbok River. Throughout his life, he had always tried to control everything through his own wisdom, schemes, and strength. But then came a night when he no longer had enough strength to keep resisting. It was in that very moment, when he was both weak and desperate, that I changed his name and transformed the old person within him. Do you see? The greatest transformation often does not come when you are at your strongest, but when you finally allow me to touch the weakest place within you. My power is made perfect in weakness. As 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, in the very place where you think you are about to fall, my grace begins to raise you up in a deeper way. Beloved child, there will be days, after you let go of what once held you captive, when your soul will feel strangely empty. You will be so used to the old noise that the new silence may frighten you. Some people return to the darkness simply because they cannot endure the quietness of healing. But I want you to understand that emptiness is not abandonment. It is the ground I am clearing so I can sow something new. A garden cannot bloom if weeds still cover the soil. A field cannot receive a harvest if it has not first been plowed. And a soul cannot be filled with the peace of heaven if it is still crowded with the noise that scatters the heart. Do not rush to fill that silence with old habits, fleeting pleasures, or things that only help you temporarily forget the emptiness. Stay in the stillness with me for a while. At first, it may feel unfamiliar because your soul has grown too accustomed to running from itself. But little by little, you will begin to hear what has long been hidden beneath the noise, the sound of peace gently returning to your heart. Just as a lake can only reflect the sky when it is no longer disturbed, your soul will also begin to reflect the light when it learns to rest in me. There will be mornings when you wake up and do not feel joy immediately. You will wonder whether you are truly being healed. But child, do not judge my work only by passing emotions. A seed does not sprout on the very first day. It is planted. Roots always grow deep beneath the soil before branches and leaves appear above the ground. In the same way, there are things I am doing within your soul that your eyes cannot yet see. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. As Psalm 35 says, the night does not last forever. And today's silence is not a sign of death, but preparation for a new season of life. Remember Elijah, after he became exhausted in the wilderness. He thought he wanted to die, thinking that all his strength and hope had been spent. But I did not rebuke him for that weakness. I gave him rest. I gave him bread and water. Then I let him out of the cave with a gentle voice, not with a violent storm. Beloved child, I am treating your soul in the same way. I am not pressuring you to recover immediately. I do not despise the days when you are still tender and weak. I only want you not to return to the place that left your soul depleted. So today, learn how to lay your burdens down. Let your shoulders rest in my love. Let this silence become the place where your soul is healed instead of the place where you are afraid. And a day will come when you look back and realize that the very season that seemed empty was the place where I was quietly sowing the seeds of peace, maturity, and new light into your life. When that spiritual spring arrives, you will understand that I never forgot you for even a moment. I was only preparing your soul for a life deeper than anything you had ever known before. Beloved child, I know you have spent too long living like someone who must hold up the entire sky on your shoulders. You have tried to keep everything from falling apart, tried to find an answer for every pain, tried to use your own limited strength to fix things that are beyond human ability. And then there are nights when every sound around you becomes quiet, and you lie there with a mind that has never truly rested. You think that if you let go, everything will break. But child, I never created you to carry the whole world alone. There are burdens that belong only to me. There are battles that only the light of heaven has the strength to carry you through. Surrender before me is not the loss of freedom as the world has made you fear. No, beloved child, it is the path that leads your soul into the rest you have long been seeking in vain. A boat will never find peace if it keeps trying to resist the current by its own strength in the middle of a great storm. But when it allows the heavenly wind to guide it, it will find the shore. In the same way, when you stop trying to control everything and learn to place your trust in me, you will begin to feel a peace that does not depend on circumstances. Be still and know that I am God. As Psalm 46:10 says, there are times when what your soul needs most is not another plan or another effort, but to learn how to rest in my presence. I have seen the nights when you were so tired you only wanted to collapse, yet still tried to appear strong before everyone. I see the thoughts spinning in your mind, the worries that make your heart heavy as stone, and even when you no longer have enough words to pray, I still hear the sigh of your soul. Beloved child, I have never fallen asleep in the middle of the storm of your life. When you think you are walking alone in the darkness, my arms are still quietly holding you back from falling into the abyss of despair. The Lord is your keeper. As Psalm 12:15 says, I do not abandon you in the battles of life and stand far away as an observer. I am there in the midst of that pain with you day and night. And now, even though you cannot yet see it clearly, I am doing something new within your soul. The tears you once felt ashamed of, because you thought they were a sign of weakness, are actually becoming streams of water that nourish the dry ground within you. There are seeds of maturity that can only sprout through pain. As this awakening grows inside you, know that helping with this mission is not a joke. It is a sign from God. You can support this work through the link in the description or the pinned comment, whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself, Jesus says. This is not history. It is a living promise about your future. Come into this moment with faith and a plan. What God has already planned for your life can be unlocked through your giving. A forest after a great fire may look devastated, but those very ashes can make the soil more fertile for a new season of life. The same is true for you, child. People may only see the scars in your life, but I see a soul that has learned gentleness through loss, compassion through wounds, and the value of light after days spent walking in darkness. Remember Naomi in Scripture. She once lost her husband, her sons, and almost everything that made her feel her life still had meaning. In her pain, she even wanted to change her name to Mara, meaning bitter, because she thought her life had become nothing but loss. But I did not let her story end in despair. From that very land of sorrow, I opened a new journey where love, restoration, and hope would rise again through faithful Ruth. Do you see? There are times when you think every door is closed, yet I am quietly leading you to a deeper home, a place where your soul no longer depends on fleeting things, but learns to anchor itself in me. Beloved child, a day will come when you look back on this road with different eyes. The nights that once made you weep will no longer be only painful memories. They will become evidence that I kept you alive through the things you once thought could destroy you. There are wounds that hurt you today, but later they will become the very places where my light shines through most clearly. All things work together for good to those who love God, as Romans 8:28 says, that does not mean every pain is good, but that even the fiercest thing can still be turned by me into a seed for what is good. If you do not close your heart to me, just as Joseph was sold, betrayed, and forgotten in a dark prison, perhaps today you also do not understand why you must pass through seasons that feel so heavy. But a day will come when you stand on the other side of this journey and realize that I use those very things to shape your soul into something deeper, stronger, and more full of mercy. What others thought would bury you, I will turn into the place where you meet me most deeply. What once made you tremble, I will use to make you a source of comfort for other souls who are lost. So today, do not go back and pick up the old chains again. Beloved child, do not return to fear, to self-condemnation, or to the habit of thinking you must save yourself by your own strength. I have already opened the prison door. Do not step back into the darkness simply because it is familiar to you. Keep walking toward the light, even if each step still trembles. Let my peace flow through every breath you take, instead of allowing worry to rule your soul any longer. And when you are weak, when the old days return and make your heart weary again, remember this: my arms have never closed against you. I am not standing there waiting to judge you each time your steps become slow. I stand there as a patient father, ready to lift you up again and again. For the true resting place of your soul has never been found in controlling everything perfectly. It is found when you finally learn how to remain still in my love. Beloved child, there will be days when I bring before you souls carrying wounds that ordinary eyes cannot see. You will stand before their pain and feel your heart fall silent because you do not know what words could ever be enough. Perhaps you will fear that silence, afraid that you do not have words wise enough to heal them. But child, do not forget that I have never called you to become the one who answers all the suffering of humanity. I have not placed upon your shoulders the burden of understanding every secret of another person's soul. What I seek in you is a heart that knows how to be present with mercy, a soul gentle enough to remain beside the one who is hurting without turning away because it feels powerless. There are wounds that cannot be healed by too many words. A person sinking into despair sometimes does not need someone to explain the light to them. They only need a hand that will not leave them in the darkness. You will learn that a loving presence is often stronger than every eloquent speech. Just like Job long ago, when pain covered his life, his friends hurt him even more when they tried to use words to explain what they did not truly understand. But before that, there was a beautiful moment people often forget. They sat with him for 7 days and 7 nights in silence, because they saw that his suffering was very great. Beloved child, there are souls who only need someone to sit beside them with such a humble heart. And sometimes that very silence filled with love is the place where I begin to work a miracle. Do not underestimate the small prayers offered through tears and sincerity. The world is used to noise, to great things that draw people's attention. But heaven often moves in very quiet things. There are chains that do not fall by human strength, but by a soul kneeling down and whispering, "Father, please touch this person." There are rooms full of darkness that do not need a fierce fire to make everything tremble. They only need a small lamp kept burning without ceasing. You are the light of the world, as Matthew 5:14 says, "I do not require you to become the sun, I only want you to faithfully keep the lamp I placed within you from going out in the long night of another person. Beloved child, the pain you have passed through has never been meaningless in my eyes. Perhaps there were times when you wondered why you had to endure such heavy seasons, why I did not remove them from your life sooner. But now you will gradually understand. I did not only rescue you from the darkness, I also used that very journey to make your heart softer towards souls who are struggling. A person who has never cried will find it difficult to understand the value of comfort. A person who has never been broken will find it difficult to feel the trembling of someone in despair. But you, beloved child, I am turning your scars into a language that wounded people can recognize. Remember the Samaritan woman at the well. She once carried much shame and loneliness, living with a thirsty heart, yet not knowing where to find the true water. But after she met me, that very woman who had once been looked down upon became the one who ran to tell the whole city that she had met, the one who knew everything about her and still loved her. Do you see? I often use the souls who have suffered most deeply to bring hope to others, not because they are perfect, but because they know what it means to be touched by grace. But I also want you to be careful of this. Beloved child, do not try to become the savior of everyone. There are hearts that love others so much that they place burdens on their own shoulders, which I never told them to carry. You are not called to save the world by your own strength. Only I can heal the things bound deep within the human soul at their root. You are the one who reaches out your hand, but I am the strength that lifts them up. You are the vessel that carries the oil, but I am the source of oil that never runs dry. If you forget this, you will become exhausted trying to do what belongs only to me. Therefore, learn how to lead others back to the source of life instead of making them dependent on you. Pray with them, listen to them, love them, but do not forget to let me do the deepest work within their hearts. Even Jesus, when he was on earth, often withdrew to lonely places to pray with the Father. If my son still needed to remain in the sacred presence so that the flow would not run dry, then you need to stay even closer to me. A river can continue to flow only when it remains connected to its source. And your soul is the same. If you only give without returning to me to be filled again, you will gradually run dry without realizing it. Beloved child, do not try to prove your transformation by things displayed outwardly. A healthy tree does not need to shout that it is alive. Its fruit will speak for it. Let the peace I have placed within you be seen through the way you treat the weak, through the gentleness in your words, through the ability to forgive that you once thought you could never have. People will recognize the light not because you are trying to shine, but because they feel peace when they are near a soul that has been touched by me. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. As Matthew 5:9-5 says, in the eyes of the world, humility is often seen as weakness, but in my kingdom, meekness is the place where my glory descends most gently. The branch that bears the most fruit is often the one that bends the lowest, and the soul that is truly closest to me will desire less and less to exalt itself. So today, walk gently, beloved child. Do not carry the pressure of having to save everyone. Do not let your heart become exhausted by trying to bear what only I can bear. Simply be faithful in keeping your heart tender, keeping the lamp of prayer burning, and keeping gratitude present in every breath. Then I will bring to you the very souls who need to be touched, and through gentleness, through mercy, through words anointed by sincerity, I will let my light flow through your life, not loudly, not with display, but enough to guide those who are lost back to the path of true peace. Beloved child, I know there are days when you have prayed through tears, yet the storm around you still seems not to have grown calm. You look at your circumstances and wonder why the wind is still howling, why the waves are still striking hard against your soul, even though you have called my name in desperation. But child, there are miracles I perform that do not begin by changing everything outside. Sometimes the deepest thing I am doing is changing your own heart in the middle of that storm. For if I only silence the storm, while your soul remains full of panic, you will tremble again before the next storm. But if I teach you how to remain still in me, while the waves are still rising, you will carry within you a peace that circumstances no longer have the power to steal. Remember the disciples on the night of the stormy sea, when great waves covered the boat and fierce winds rose up. They panicked because they thought they were about to sink. Meanwhile, Jesus was sleeping peacefully at the stern of the boat, not because he did not see the storm, but because he knew the power of the Father was greater than everything roaring around them. Beloved child, many times your soul is exhausted, not only because of the storm, but because you keep trying to hold every rein, as though everything depends on you. You try to control what others think, try to fix every outcome, try to protect the future by your own strength. But there are burdens that do not belong in your hands. And when you keep trying to sit on the throne of control, your soul will gradually collapse beneath a weight it was never created to carry. I have not called you to be the ruler over every upheaval in your life. I have called you to be a child in the Father's house. A child does not need to stay awake all night to make sure the sun rises on time. They do not need to command the wind or stop the rain from falling. They only need to know that their Father is still awake and still caring for them. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace, as Exodus 14:14 says, "Child, surrender before me does not make you smaller. It frees you from the burden of having to become something you were never created to be. When you hand authority back to me, you do not lose strength. You begin to live in true strength. Beloved child, in time, you will realize that I am not only changing your circumstances, I am changing the way you respond to those circumstances. In the past, a silence could make you panic because you thought you had been abandoned. A small loss could make you feel as though all hope had collapsed. A wound from another person could make you immediately build defensive walls around your heart. But when I begin to reign within your heart, your soul will learn a new rhythm, the rhythm of peace. You will learn to pause before reacting. You will learn to pray before speaking words that wound. You will learn to love without allowing yourself to be ruled by the fear of loss. And this does not happen in a single night. But day by day, I will quietly train your heart, like a patient craftsman sharpening a sword. Look at David when he was hunted by King Saul. He had many opportunities to take revenge on the one who had caused him pain. At one point, Saul lay right before him in the cave, completely unguarded. But instead of answering hurt with anger, David guarded his heart from becoming bitter. He understood that judgment belongs to me, not to him. Beloved child, that is the transformation I want to bring about within you. Not to make you someone who no longer feels, but someone who is no longer ruled by feelings. There is a great difference between a tender heart and a chaotic soul. I want to give you a gentleness rooted in peace, not a softness that is easily swept away by every wave. The peace of God which surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds. As Philippians 4:77 says, "Beloved child, the peace I give is not like the calm the world promises." The world only feels at peace when everything goes according to its desire, but the peace that comes from me can stand firm, even in the darkest night. It is like a faithful soldier standing guard at the door of your mind, no longer allowing old lies to enter freely. In the past, whenever you failed, the voice in your mind may have immediately whispered that you were useless. Whenever you were rejected, you believed again that you were not worthy of love. But when my peace begins to rule within you, those voices will no longer have the same power they once had, not because they disappear completely, but because you have finally learned to recognize which voice belongs to truth and which voice belongs to darkness. Beloved child, there are seasons when I do not remove the storm immediately, because I am teaching you something greater than escaping the tempest. I am teaching you how to stand firm in me. A tree that has never passed through strong winds cannot develop roots deep enough, and a soul that has never learned to trust me in the midst of uncertainty will always tremble when circumstances change. But when you learn to lean on me, instead of leaning on your own control, you will begin to feel true freedom. Freedom from the obsession of having to keep everything perfect. Freedom from panic whenever something falls outside your plan. Freedom from the pressure of having to save yourself by your own strength. A day will come when you look back and realize that what I did within the storm was even more precious than simply making the storm disappear. You will see that you no longer react as you once did. The things that once made you panic will no longer have enough power to drown you. The words that once wounded you deeply will no longer determine your worth, not because you have become cold, but because your soul has been anchored in a place more steadfast than circumstances. So today, loosen the hands that are trying to hold every rein. Let me be the one who leads you through this stormy sea. You do not need to know everything in advance in order to be at peace. You only need to know that the one who is with you has never lost his authority. And even while the wind is still howling out there, I can still place within your heart a quiet sky, a place where your soul can finally rest in the love and guidance of its Father. Beloved child, do not let your heart tremble when I speak to you about holy fire. The world often only knows the fire of anger, destruction, and pain. So it is easy for you to think that anything bearing the image of fire must mean punishment. But my fire is not like the hot temper of human beings. My fire is the holy presence entering dark places to bring light back again. It is like a goldsmith placing metal into the furnace, not to destroy the gold, but to separate from it the impurities that have hidden its true beauty. Beloved child, when I touch your soul with that fire, I am not aiming at your life. I am aiming at the chains that are quietly killing the life within you. There are things you have grown so used to living with that you thought they were a natural part of you. Pride hiding beneath the appearance of strength. Coldness being called maturity. Small compromises repeated again and again until the conscience gradually grows silent. and then I step in with uncompromising light. That light will cause you to see clearly the things you once avoided. It will expose the dark corners you tried to keep locked away. But child, do not mistake revelation for rejection. A doctor must touch the wound before healing it. A room must have its door open for sunlight to enter. In the same way, I must bring truth into the deepest places of your heart so your soul can truly be free. Our God is a consuming fire, as Hebrews 12:29 says, but do not misunderstand my heart. I do not take pleasure in causing your soul pain. What I desire to burn away is not the true person I created you to be, but the false things wrapped around your soul, like a thick layer of dust hiding the light. There are people who keep the appearance of godliness, while their hearts are cold toward love. There are people who speak spiritual words, while inside they are full of bitterness and pride. There are souls who live among the light, yet grow farther and farther from the truth. And because I love them, I cannot let them sleep forever in that falsehood. Beloved child, I know that when you look around this world, your heart often becomes heavy. You see goodness being despised, purity being mocked, kindness being treated as weakness. You see many people calling darkness light and calling light something shameful. There are times when you wonder why everything seems to be shaking like this. But listen to me carefully. Do not let your eyes stop only at the outward chaos and forget what I am doing deep beneath it. These shakings are not a sign that I have lost my authority. They are the bell-awakening souls that have slept too long in comfort and compromise. Remember the time when the prophet Isaiah entered the temple and saw my glory filling that place. The seraphim covered their faces before my holiness and cried out, "Holy, holy, holy." And when Isaiah saw that light, the first thing he recognized was not his own greatness, but his own imperfection. He cried out that his lips were unclean, but I did not destroy him. I sent an angel to take a burning coal from the altar and touch his lips, cleansing him for a new calling. Do you see? Holy fire does not only reveal what is impure, it also prepares the soul for something greater ahead. There are foundations in your life that need to be shaken so you can recognize what you have built your trust upon. If everything around you always remained stable, you would easily think that your security was found in money, in people, or invisible things. But when those things begin to tremble, I am teaching you what the true rock really is. The things that can be shaken will be removed, so that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. As Hebrews 12:27 reminds you, beloved child, there are things I allow to leave your life, not because I want to take away your peace, but because I want to bring you to a place where peace no longer depends on circumstances. Do not be afraid when I draw you out of familiar places that no longer bring life to your soul. A tree that wants to grow strong must let its roots go deeper beneath the ground. A bird that wants to fly must leave its old nest, and a soul that wants to enter spiritual depth must also learn to leave behind the compromises that have kept it asleep. I know this is not easy. There are things you once considered safe that my light will expose. You are about to enter your divine future. Remember that this message does not end with you. People can use your breakthrough to get where they need to go through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community, you can help this mission. By doing so, you are sowing into the awakening, deliverance, and restoration of souls who are still trapped in darkness. This is not poetry when Jesus says, "Give, and heaven will open over you." Every seed you plant turns into oil for your destiny, fire for your calling, and safety for your family. Now is your time, my child. Have faith, and as you do, watch God multiply what you let go of. There are relationships, habits, and ways of thinking that will no longer be able to continue when truth begins to enter. But child, I do not take things away in order to leave you empty. I clear the space so your soul may have room for what truly belongs to heaven. Beloved child, do not let your heart be swept away by the fear of this age. My kingdom is not built upon human approval, and therefore it does not collapse because of the world's opposition. When everything around you is shaking, you must anchor your soul even more deeply in me. A house built on sand will tremble before the storm, but a house built on the rock will stand firm. And I am teaching you to build your life upon the rock of truth, love, and my presence. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. As John 105 says, darkness may roar loudly, but it has never conquered the light. So do not let your soul become paralyzed by what your eyes see today. Look deeper. In the midst of every shaking, I am still awakening hearts that sincerely seek me in an age full of noise. I am still calling forth a people who know how to live in truthfulness and mercy. And you, beloved child, I am also refining you to become one of those lamps. So if today you feel my fire touching your heart, do not run from it. Do not rush to extinguish that stirring with the noise of the world. Let me do my purifying work within you, for after everything has been refined by holy fire, what remains is not ashes, but a soul that is purer, freer, and able to reflect my light more clearly than ever before. Beloved child, there will be times when my justice begins to move clearly in this world. And when that happens, what has been hidden for too long will no longer be able to remain undisturbed in the darkness. There are lies built very skillfully, systems constructed from greed and manipulation that seem as though they will never collapse. But child, no wall is thick enough to keep my light from shining through. No throne built upon oppression can stand forever before me. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest. As Luke 8:1-17 says, the things people use power to cover up, I can reveal with a single ray of truth. But beloved child, when you see that exposure taking place, I do not want your heart to rejoice with the joy of the flesh, the kind of satisfaction that delights in seeing others fall. I have not called you to become someone who watches the collapse of others with cold eyes. My justice is not like the bitter revenge of human beings. My justice carries the purpose of healing, restoration, and rebuilding what has been trampled down. When I expose darkness, it is not only to judge those who do evil, but also so that the wounded may be seen, heard, and lifted up from the ashes. Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Amos 0:20 declares that river does not only sweep away what is rotten, it also waters the land that has been dry for too long because of injustice. Beloved child, I have heard the cries of those who have been forgotten. I see the souls oppressed in silence, those whose voices have been stolen, those who have thought many times that no one stood on their side. The world may not see, but I see. There are tears no one has ever wiped away. Christrist will help swallowed by the noise of this age, but not one of them escapes my sight. Remember the people of Israel in the land of Egypt. For many years they thought their cry was only echoing into an endless void. But then I said to Moses, I have surely seen the affliction of my people. I have heard their cry, child. My justice may often seem slow in human eyes, but it never sleeps. However, when the shakings begin to happen in this age, you must guard your heart carefully, for it is very easy for a soul to resist darkness, yet allow that same darkness to slip into it through anger, pride, and bitterness. There are people who begin with a desire for justice, but end with hearts full of hatred. I do not want that for you. True light does not turn you into someone who despises humanity. It makes your heart even softer toward the deception in which human beings are trapped. Remember Jesus when he stood before Jerusalem, the city that had rebelled and rejected him many times. He did not look upon it with delight because judgment was coming. He wept over it. Do you see? A heart that belongs to me always grieves over ruin, even when justice must be carried out. Therefore, when you call what is wrong, do it with tears, not with self-exaltation. When you stand on the side of truth, do not allow yourself to forget to pray for those who are still blinded by darkness. Overcome evil with good. As Romans 12:21 says, you are not called to reflect the same kind of darkness you are resisting. If anger makes your heart grow cold, if the battle for truth causes you to lose mercy, then the enemy has already taken from your soul what it wanted. I am seeking those who know how to keep the lamp burning without letting the oil of love run dry. Those who are brave enough not to compromise with what is wrong, yet gentle enough to keep interceding for humanity. Beloved child, this age will still face many shakings. Things once considered solid will begin to crack. Systems that seemed untouchable will reveal the decay hidden within them. And in all of this, I want you to anchor your heart in me, instead of in fear or in the outrage of the crowd. A tree with deep roots will not be uprooted simply because the wind is strong. In the same way, a soul rooted in my presence will not be swept away by the chaos of the age. I have not called you to live in naivety before evil. No, you must clearly discern light from darkness. You must know how to call deceit, deceit, oppression, oppression, and injustice, injustice. But remember that true light does not need to shout. In order to prove that it is light, it only needs to keep shining. A lamp does not argue with darkness. It simply shines. And the darkness retreats on its own. The same is true for you, beloved child. Let your life reflect the truth through purity, humility, and mercy. I am seeking those who guard the flame, not with hands full of violence, but with clean hands. Those who do not lose a tender heart in a world that is growing increasingly hardened. Those who know how to kneel and pray for humanity instead of only standing up to condemn it. Those who can look upon the fallenness of this age and still keep tears for the souls of human beings. So today, stand firm in me, beloved child. Do not let fear make you run after the shouting of the crowd. Do not let anger cloud your eyes before mercy. Keep the lamp within you burning with the oil of truth and love. Then in the midst of a shaking world, your soul will become a place others can look to and realize that there is still a light that darkness has not swallowed, a light that comes from me, gentle yet uncompromising, tender yet full of healing power.